Greetings, family. This is Kyle Dixon, co-founder of Precise Minds Filmworks, educator for 20 plus years, cultural enthusiast.
And I'm Kayode Bentley, president and founder of 4T's Teaching Teens to Think, whose mission is to help inner city youth identify their inherent skill sets in order to complete their education, establish a career, and ultimately start a business if they choose to. Professor at Fordham University, where I teach students who are pursuing their master's degree in social justice.
And with that said, welcome to the Grand Rising Collective, a podcast whose purpose is to cultivate greatness and excellence within ourselves and our communities. The name itself is from the morning greeting of Grand Rising, which we interpret as starting off the day with a greatness mindset so that we are able to rise to the occasion of whatever obstacles and challenges we may face.
And that's why we focus on engagement, relevant information, and empowerment for people in our communities who want to be and do better in their daily lives.
Welcome to the Grand Rising Collective. So we are live in effect, family. Family, what's good? This is Kyle Dixon here for another episode of the Grand Rising Collective, coming to you on the Grand Rising Collective Facebook page. For those who are just tuning in, thank you. And for those who have never seen our episodes before, or for those who have, we are a podcast that is based on the fact that we want to create excellence. We want to create solutions for a lot of our issues in our communities, whether it be local or global. And I am one of the co-hosts. My name is Kyle Dixon. My other co-host with me is Mr. Kayode Bentley. Say hello, my sir.
Listen, y'all, we having a good time tonight. One of the reasons for our podcast being at this hour, because it's about 10 o'clock going on 10 o'clock tonight here in the U.S. Got a special guest, Tony, and he's live coming, working with us, sitting with us from Japan.
We got a special guest on tonight, Mr. Anthony Hudson, coming all the way from Tokyo, Japan. Tokyo, am I right? Japan, right?
That's right.
That's right. So he's coming to share a lot of his insight and perspective on the global market. We have had him on as a guest before last year. So it's been about a year and some change since we've last had him on our platform. And we definitely want to bring him back because we got a lot of stuff to talk about. We got cryptocurrency to talk about. We got the rise and fall and the dynamics of the stock market to talk about. We also have, in reference of just his perspective, looking on the outside from Japan on America and other global politics that are happening, as well as, as we know, the Olympics were just in Japan. So in reference of COVID and that connection and how things are functioning or not functioning over there in comparison to the US, we definitely want insight, and our listeners definitely want insight on that as well. All right. So without further ado, Tony, man, welcome, brother. How you doing?
Oh, good. Yeah. It's been a long time. Good to see you.
It has. So what's something? So give the listeners some of your background for those who haven't seen you before, not familiar with you. Just give them some background on who you are, what you do, and some of your skill sets, some of the things you're studying and observing up to this point.
Sure. So my background is in finance, and I've worked in most areas from trading stock, mutual funds, financial advising. I traded oil and gas contracts, and most recently now I am an independent gold trader. And so I've been doing this for about 8 years. And I like I said, I'm just outside of Tokyo, Japan, in a suburb. And I've been here for about 5 years, and I kind of love it. And right now I'm in a school. This is our school. I've started a school with my wife. So and it's about just diversify, just like trying to get into education, because I realize the value of being in control of education. And so we'll talk about that. We can talk about that as well. But that's pretty much my background, is just my main concentrations are finance and education.
Nice. Let's start off with let's start with crypto, man. Let's just go into it. I know we were talking about earlier. You say you doing this 180 thing, man. At first, you was like, I remember you saying like you was against it. You know, you thought it was fake. Now you like coming around. What's the change? What happened?
Yeah, so the beginning, I couldn't understand it, and I was looking at it from a traditional finance person's perspective of how basically, so finance is or money is a means of getting things from one place to another place, whether that's transacting in goods or services or whatever, or discovering price. That's what we use money for, something. And when you kind of shake up the system, then it kind of disrupts that. And people don't like that disruption. And usually that disruption leads, first of all, the chance of success is very slim. But on top of that, it kind of disrupts business. And finance, especially finance people, hate anything that disrupts business. So I couldn't see it. That was my original view. I said, there's no way that they're going to let this happen. I mean, there was other things, like I thought the U.S. government was going to crush it. I thought, a lot of other things. But now that I started to come around, and of course, more and more people are talking about it, they keep coming to it. Most of the people that I see leading the charge are technology people. And I'm kind of leery about that, because I mean, I understand that technology people, they always want to change the world. They want to change a lot of things, but they don't, once they implement change, or once they come up with a new idea and they let it run and they grow it to a certain point, they don't know how to keep it going. And like in many areas, whether that's Apple, whether that's Facebook, or I mean, you can go down the line. What the one thing that technology companies do when they get to a certain point is they start to bring in other people from other areas, from other industries, to kind of run the business that and keep it stable, keep it on that even till, and so that even kill, and so that's why it's one of those things where it's like I right now Bitcoin or crypto is the same. You have the technology people leading the change, saying this is the new way. Whether it's fintech or crypto, these new areas, they're coming up with new areas to do things, and you have the other areas start to move into that yet. And so that's one thing that I'm kind of weary about. But from an independent perspective and looking at things just from a different way, I like the fact that it's different, and I like the fact that people have options now. And if you're a true capitalist and you really believe in competition, then the best product is going to win, right? And so most people are not happy with the U.S. dollar right now as it is. So, competition might be a little good thing. That's why I'm coming around.
So you mentioned the term fintech. So for those who don't know, like what is fintech, or what are some examples of it?
So fintech is just financial technology, which in most areas it turns out to be technology companies that are investing in finance. Or what they do is they find technological ways to make money in the industry of finance is what's happening. So a good example of that is Square. And Square was a technology company based in California, Silicon Valley, and they just saw the current way of transacting, and they say, well, we could do it easier if we, using our technology. So they came up with, I mean, they've been doing all kinds of things in terms of coming up with their own credit models, which is something that traditionally we've only banks have come up with credit models. Like there's nobody else that has that, and we've always relied on theirs. But now they're developing their own. They have their own transaction networks, which we've relied on Visa and MasterCard for, and things like that. Now we have we have alternatives. So they're generating a lot of those. A lot of companies are doing things like that, and they're getting into these areas, and they're trying to use technology to kind of bring costs down and to create a new alternative, which is great.
Okay, nice. Yeah, because I remember Square.
Yeah.
Back when I first got to New York, the little piece where you could swipe the card through, that was like 2011. I remember
Right.
that. Yeah, and they were giving away free. I was wondering like, why are they giving away these little adapters for your phone for free to swipe a card through? And I was like, wow, like that was crazy.
Yeah, now they're one of the biggest fintech. They're one of the biggest fintech companies, and they just bought an Australian credit lender. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they're really now they're really starting to challenge banks. And I remember even on J.P. Morgan's conference call, they were. I mean, you were talking about it. Like Jamie Dimon, the CEO, he said himself, like his biggest competition is not other banks. His biggest competition is financial technology.
Wow.
So, like, it's interesting to see the biggest bank in America talk about their biggest competition is not in their industry. So,
That's that's huge right there.
yeah, I mean, things are changing. Man, the world is changing, which I'm glad to see. It's about time.
Yeah. Dang. So Kayode, glad to have you back, sir. Glad to have you back. We Tony was just talking about crypto. I was asking about cryptocurrency, like the relevancy of it. What is it? So you were just breaking that down. So yeah, family. Again, this is the Grand Rise Collector podcast. Definitely make sure you share, subscribe, like, in reference of this video. Kayode, man, I know you got some questions, man. Because
I do. The first question is,
yeah.
does it sound like I'm screaming?
No, it doesn't.
Am I screaming? I don't want to be screaming. Am I screaming?
Yeah.
You sound passionate.
Right.
That's what I'm saying
Yeah.
right there. All right, so family, check it out. We do it.
Right.
I guess
We need your inside voice
my
on this
question
one.
is, all right, so on my inside voice. Now
Yeah.
I'm hearing, and I know you talked about crypto, and I'm still getting familiar with it as well. So there's not too many questions I can ask. At this stage, I'm still a student, so I still need to do more research like you. So I'm going to keep this question in the area of trades, the stock market. Okay. So this question in the area of trades in the stock market is, now I keep hearing, we had an interview with a guest a few weeks back, that the stock market to an extent is fair game, right? So anybody can get into the stock market, and pretty much there's an opportunity. But I don't believe it. And the reason why is because I've heard over the years that you have dividends that you can invest in stocks and stuff like that. But Tony, maybe you could tell me, since you have experience in that area.
Okay.
You're really not going to make any profit in the stock market because those higher up have already got their ear to what's going on, and they know what to invest compared to what not to invest. And I've heard in the 2008 crash, such as Enron and all of them, there was some of them at the top that were able to withdraw their investment right before the actual stock crashed. So if that's the kind of information that is shared on that level financially, how can an average person like ourselves, who's just entering in the stock market and only can invest $1,000 on the stock, how can we be sure that, you know what I mean, we're investing in a good stock when those higher up got their ear on what's going on and what's a killer and what's about to take over and what's not? You know what I'm saying?
Right. Okay. So that's an awesome question. And so the answer to your, I guess the short answer is you're both right. Your guest is right, saying that the market is kind of fair game in the fact that everybody can make money. Also, you're also right that it's not completely fair, because why would a huge company, I mean, think about why would JP Morgan get in the same game as you and we have equal odds? We're both flipping a coin 50-50. Heads, JP Morgan makes money. Tails, you make money. Like, they're not going to get in that. So obviously you're both right. But I guess the answer is, the way that you would make money is you have to think differently. And this goes back to what we were saying. And I guess let me try to put it this way. If I told you about a brand new company, 10 years ago, let's just say 10 years ago, there's a brand new company, Amazon, right? You got to, and you're not familiar with this, and I'm telling you about it. I'm like, hey, like you have a company now, but this Amazon thing, this can change your, like, you can make a ton of money off of Amazon. And so then you say, huh. And now the first way is you're gonna be, well, how can I make money off of Amazon? And there's so many ways. And so I guess that question is similar to the stock market. Like, you could just buy Amazon stock, and then as Amazon grows, you make money. Okay, fine. And how much money could you make? It depends on how early you are in Amazon and whatnot. So that would be the same thing in the stock market. You'd buy the big companies, whatever you see, Walmart or the biggest companies that are around you, you buy that, and as they grow, you grow. You could make money depending on how early you are or how late you are. It depends. But I mean, many people believe that Apple, when they reached $1 trillion, they said, that's the biggest corporation that America had ever seen, and they were like
$1 trillion,
larger, $1 trillion. And now I think Apple is $2.4 trillion. So had you invested in Apple, you still would. You see what I'm saying? So we don't know, so that's possible. The other way is you say, well, I can move. So it's a marketplace. I can move my entire business. I can get rid of this building here and move everything onto the Amazon platform, and I can save money that way. And they can do my distribution and all kinds of stuff, Amazon Web Services, and they can do, all kinds of things for my company. And they'll say, yeah, we can do that. Of course, there's the other thing. We take a piece of your information and we use it for our benefit, and of course, eventually we start competing against you, as some other companies have said and stuff like that. Which that's the marketplace, right? Of course, it's not equal. JP Morgan, they're watching your trades. They might even be selling your trade to the other side. Like, they might be the other side of your trade. So there's a lot of times they're going to say, yeah, like, Kyle, you should buy this stock, and they're going to sell this garbage. But, like, at the same time, there's tons of people who've opened up they've opened up their whole store on Amazon or online. They built whole businesses like that. So is it still possible to make money? Yes. Is it unfair? Yes.
What kind of answers that?
All right.
No, but I hear you.
That's wow. So let me ask you this, Tony. In reference of the market, right? When we talk about, like, again, it's not like either or, but it's both. How can one, I guess, guard themselves from the market? Because I heard a story recently of a young brother who lost a lot of money on the market, betting on crypto or betting on stocks as well. And recently, we know that the stocks had done tremendously well during COVID. Right. But how does that relate? Because I know you and I were talking before. How does that relate to, like, the Bitcoin pricing and the value of the US dollar in reference of stocks? Like, how do they correlate with each other, and how the market fluctuates? And I know it's kind of a broad question, but like as far as, like, somebody entering in, they're like, well, what's the between crypto and should I put it in the stock market, and do they affect each other, or?
Right. No. Okay. Yeah. So from a if you're just now starting to get into the market, the most important question that you have to ask yourself is, what is your why? And what is the reason why you are doing this? It is the most important reason of anything. And I can't even the reason why I say that is because I can't give you a stock tip. I can't give you any advice because I don't know who you are. And so if you're retiring in 3 years and you need your money and you're pretty much at that point, your investment perspective is different from somebody who's going to be in the market next 20 years. And, like, that's even just in that area. Then when you start to look at other things, like, if not only what's your why, but what is their why. And so the other thing is, if you don't understand, and I'm talking about that guy that you mentioned with the cryptocurrency, if he doesn't understand why his money went down, it's going to happen again. Like, he didn't lose his money. Somebody took his money. Okay? And that's what you have to remember. Every trade has two sides. So he didn't lose money. Somebody took his money. And if he doesn't understand where his money went, somebody will come back and take it again. So that's why, and that's what's happening right now. Like, they will keep taking your money as long as you don't understand what's happening until you learn why you're losing money. Like, losing money is not an accident. So that's the biggest thing you have to understand. Now, once you do that, then you can say, okay, well, how do I make money? You can make money in anything. And this is the one thing that I didn't understand when I first got into the market, because I love money. Obviously, I was just interested, even as a young kid. Like, I bought my first stock when I was 14 years old, and just interested in, like, how does the market move? Like, how does money, like, how can you just make money out of nothing? Like, I couldn't understand why anybody else would do any other area. Like, why would you? This is the area that makes money. Like, this is money. Like, why would you get into something else? But what happened now, I realize you can make money in anything, and as long as you understand that whole process, whether it's fashion design and understanding my brand, and once I have that brand locked down, I can put this name on anything, and I'm literally printing money. I have a money printing machine, to the fact that, like Apple, once I get you to buy a $1,000 phone, once you buy a $1,000 phone, this becomes a gateway to you, and I can keep selling you apps. I can keep selling you services. I can keep selling you things. Whatever your why is, you have to understand the why, and then that's how you make money. So if I guess that's the short way of saying that is, if you don't understand, if you're not interested enough, then you're not going to do the research and homework. You're going to lose money. And if you don't understand why, you're also going to lose money. So that's why. And the third thing is, some people get in this because they want to get rich. Some people get in because they just want to make $1 or $2. I just want to grow a little interest. I'm not trying to, break the bank. I'm not trying to make
That's trying to majorly come up. Yeah.
That
all out.
Those people are completely different, right? If you want to be, I will say the one thing is, if you want to be rich doing this, then most of the investment advice that you see on the internet is not going to be for you. The diversification, the stuff like that, that's not for you. You can look at almost every millionaire or billionaire that I know that has made their money investing or something. They never made it from diversification. They never did, not one. And now people are starting to speak against it. And so now when young people are hearing about the stock market and they want to get rich, and then they look at, how do I do it? The first thing they read is, hey, you should be diversified. No, you shouldn't. Right. Like, you should know about 2 or 3, maybe 5 stocks that you really, really know, that you really are passionate about. You really love that product. You just love Tesla. You love everything about it, and you buy that company, and then that company will make you rich. That's how you get rich. You don't get rich by throwing 20, 30 companies into a portfolio that you're not interested in. Like, that's not going to make you rich. Yeah, the same thing about cryptocurrency. If you're not interested in it, then you're not going to do the research. You're not going to understand how it trades. You're not going to look at it. And you're going to lose money.
All right. So the tangible that you're telling us, Tony, is for stocks, cryptocurrency, basically life, is you have to put the work in. So you have to do your homework. You have to do your research. You have to dedicate that time in studying how this works, the ins and outs, the beginnings and the ends, in order to be successful at it.
Right. And that develops from a passion. You have to have a passion. And once you get that passion for it, and you can see it's like, I guess the easiest way to see this is from cryptocurrency. When you talk to people about crypto, they either love it or they don't understand it or hate it. And the people that love it, they're just on fire for it. Like, man, we can talk about crypto, blah, blah, blah. That passion is what drives the work. And that's what drives the research. And that's what does the hours and hours of studying, because I want to understand how this thing that I love works. And so that's the most important thing. If you're not interested in real estate, how many people said that your house is your biggest investment, but yet they don't make any money on their house? And then when their house went down during the financial crisis, they had no idea it was coming. But like you said, the banks knew it was coming. Everybody who was on Wall Street, they could see this financial crash coming. They got their money out of the way. So if it's an investment, do your research.
That's a good point that you brought up, right? So this is philosophical. This question is going to bear on philosophy. So we as a culture are so preoccupied. And let me know if I'm disconnecting if you can't hear me. I know my internet is.
You're good. You're
good. So we as a culture are so preoccupied with surviving, right? Living check to check, robbing Peter to pay Paul, that is it realistic enough to believe, or I mean, if you want something bad enough, you'll make it happen. But I'm saying for those who don't have that aptitude, that don't have that fortitude, or whatever the case may be, and just leveling the playing field, is it realistic enough to believe that somebody who's surviving and living from check to check and working on a job just to survive, is it realistic enough to think in terms of half of the majority that they have that time to discover what their why is, or they have that actual time to do the research? Yes, say for example, in stocks, do they even have the aptitude to know what books to even purchase or rent from the library? Do they even know where to begin? Is it realistic or reasonable enough to believe that people in our demographic can even broach that?
But they don't have to.
Opportunity.
Well, and the thing is, I would say they don't have to. Like if you are in your example, if you're living check to check, then you're probably working. If you're working, then going back to what we're saying, you're getting some kind of skill. That skill, you have to use that skill to do something else. You just have that skill becomes the most important thing. So instead of spending 12 hours, working check to check, or basically spending 12 hours at work and then coming home and try to spend another 3 or 4 hours reading a book, trying to get into another industry, just spend those 2 or 3 hours trying to figure out how to take the information from the 12 hours and turn it into a company. So that's a side hustle. Do something on the side, turn it into a side project. Most of these companies these IPOs and the stocks come from smaller companies. And those smaller companies come from entrepreneurs or startups, which came from original ideas. And so if you have an idea and you turn it into a partly running functional company, somebody will take that company and buy it off of you for 10 times the value. And then they will blow that up. And that's an entrepreneur is part of the stock market. Like that's a whole industry in itself. So instead of trying to say, well, what they should do is start to put their money into the stock market, maybe they should start trying to put their money into buying. If you're a plumber, you should put your money together with a couple other plumbers and to start trying to buy a plumbing company. Grow that plumbing company up to the biggest plumbing company in New York City and try to sell that off. That's your hustle. Like, if that's what you do, you're the best plumber, plumbing, like you've been doing this for 20 years, your family's been in this, you already have the history, you know the connections, you have everybody. Why are you trying to go into finance? This is what you do. You're a plumber. Make your money that way. And once you start to grow that reputation under the plumbing industry, somebody's going to buy that for $1 million. How long is it going to take to buy $1 million? How long is it going to take to make $1 million in the stock market, especially right here? That's hard.
Very good point. I'm sorry, Cal. I'm coming out with all these questions, man.
Yeah, man. No, you got some good questions, man.
All right, thank you, brother.
You're on the same page.
So Tony, my demographic are inner city youth. So there's two questions I'm going to pose at you. All right. So the first one is for adults who have been in the workforce for 15, 20 years. They're already vested. They have a family. You know what I mean? They got this sort of, according to statistics and data, it shows that over 85%, and I'm sure it's probably higher, of the population are in jobs that they hate, that they can't stand, right? But they have to go there because they have to pay bills.
Okay.
It's not what they don't want to do. So in response to your solution, which was a great solution, what advice would you have for someone in that situation?
So that goes back. What's your why? You said you have to pay the bills. Okay. Then which bills do you have to pay? How long do you have to pay them? Are they credit card bills that I can keep paying and get rid of eventually? Are they the mortgage, which my main goal is to pay that off? Or are these just, this is my cost of living. I have to pay this every day. Then if that's that. So then that's the first question. And then the second one, like you were saying, is if you hate it, why do you hate it? Do you hate it because your company and your boss, but you like your area? Like from what I heard, a lot of programmers, they just hate what they program. They don't hate programming. They love computers. They love where they're at. You should be trying to get out of there. So that's one of those things. But going back, many people hate their job, but they're just scared because of what they've been told. And they've been told that if you go out there, there's nothing else for you. This is the best house that you're ever going to find is this company. What we're paying you is the best that you're ever going to get. So and once you leave that door, you're never coming back. I'm never taking you back. And so now we're scared to leave. So that's why people are in jobs that they hate. But going back, if you're in a job that you hate, your number one thing should be every day I'm trying to figure out how to get out of this job. Building something else. There's other jobs, and you can create your own job. I mean, think about it. There's 7 billion people on Earth, and I'd say 90% of those people work, and they're still looking for jobs. So there's over 6 billion different jobs on this planet. And that's just in the known universe. So you can find a job somewhere. Somebody's going to hire you to do something.
Oh, this guy's good, man. He's good. Tony's good. He's questions, man.
So let me interject on this one, right? Because it represents jobs, right? Because here's an issue that we're having here in the States, as you know, that like you said, jobs are plentiful, but like I was talking to my students as well. What seems to be confusing is people want jobs, but what they're not saying is they want jobs where they can sustain a livelihood, a lifestyle. And I think 43 or 47% of people are below poverty line. That's like 1 in 3 people in America living below the poverty line. So how does one navigate a job versus a career, something that they can sustain themselves and a family on? Like how do one go about that? I know, I'm here, I mean, from your opinion, because again, we're talking about, the access to income. Right. Talking about the access to resources and the access to acquire the skills in order to do the job, perform the job properly, in order to advance. You know what I'm saying? So like how can that work? Or how is that gets maybe manipulated for it to work?
And that's the hardest part of that is the balance point. And because you mentioned about 3 things, the first thing you said that the family, right? They have their needs, whether that's time wise or financial. A lot of things that you need as a parent, they have needs. Right. The second part is your career, and remember, your career is not just going to work, but it's also putting investment into that. Whether that's doing extra research afterwards to try to get the extra license, whether that's reading on the new updates and what's going on and trying to be cutting edge and being the best in your field, whatever that is, that there's an extra part that goes beyond just the job. After work, it's the extra part. It's the networking. It's the doing the other things. So this is also another time commitment. And so I think that people are not looking for that future. They're not trying to see, if this is my end goal, then I'm going to have to balance this and say, right now, we don't have as much time to spend with the family, but it's just until I get the certification to get this degree or whatever, get this license for this extra job, or just until I can get this company going up and running for these next 3 years. I'm focusing on my business and trying to get this going. It's being realistic and putting a timeline on that. once you have the why, you can start putting the time on that and saying, I need to do this for these, I need to do these things. All of those things kind of work backwards, I guess. And I'm obviously, as you can tell, when I was working, I'm not a big company kind of person. I've worked there, and I'm just, it's not for me. I mean, that company culture, I'm not a fan of. Like, and maybe it changes, I don't know. But right now, the current company culture, there's so many other things that go into it that's not business related. For me, if we have three of us, we're getting together, we're trying to make money. And once you look at it from that perspective and you make everything so much smaller, it becomes so much easier. And I'll give you an example. If you said, I think the average salary in America is about $52,000.
Okay. Yeah.
So, and depends on the city and everything like that. I think that's GDP per capita, I'm quoting. So if it's 52, if you just say it's $52,000, and most people need about that. If you could live off of $52,000 and there's three of us, then if we can come up with an idea that makes $152,000 or the price of half of a house, we can literally sustain all three of our livelihoods. How many? If I came to you with a business idea that makes $150,000, a bank wouldn't even sponsor that because it's too small. It's literally too small. They wouldn't even look at it. You got $150,000 business idea, and you need a loan for that. Like, what do you get, half? Like, they're not even going to finance that because a house now is what, $300,000.
Right.
So,
yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, that's what I'm saying. Like, when we start to realize we don't need these huge multi-billion-dollar companies. You just need a couple of guys getting together to come up with a project that makes enough money to sustain your livelihood. And then you do that, and once you start bringing in a couple other people to free up your time, people aren't going to get rich by that, but that wasn't your goal. If it is your goal, then you have to adjust your balance. Your family is going to suffer, as in the case of Jeff Bezos or other people. You know, their family is going to suffer. And because you're trying to add those things, but you have to recognize the balance.
Family, I just want to let you know I'm on Facebook Live as well. I have some of my youth, teenagers that are listening in, and they're learning from the knowledge that you're dropping, Tony. Thank you so much. That you'll hear me talking over here. That's what's going on. All right, so thank you for the clarification, Tony, and Kyle, for posing that question in regards to the difference between a career and a job and the sacrifices that you have to make. Tony, the point that you made with regards to the family is going to suffer, man, I know we're going to stay on finances, but when we talk about the high value man and the alpha man, and we talk
There we go. That's what I'm talking about. Let's get it.
Tony's reaction count got me wanting to.
Let's
get it.
I don't know if the Japanese. I don't know if that registered Japanese. You know what I'm saying? It was it. You know, I forgot the 1 through 10. I don't know if that registered.
Get me started on the alpha man.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Is that just an American concept, or is that a global concept? You know, like.
All right, hold that thought, because the question I want to ask before we jump onto the alpha male and the high value male is for young people, right? Because that's my target demographic. What advice, Tony, could you give to the? Because let me put it this way. Here's the reality.
Okay.
We have inner city youth who are graduating high school. You don't want to know what it looks like during this pandemic. It's like they haven't even been in school. It's like there's no lessons being taught. It's like after this pandemic is over, although technically they graduated, they're going to be 1.5 to 2 years behind in just their natural aptitude. That's the reality that we're facing. And that's
debatable too.
Huh?
And that's debatable not from our perspective, but that's debatable in reference of the quality of the schools they were at pre-COVID.
Right.
Kyle is about to drop it. So my Yeah, Cal, you threw that in there.
Yo, educate, I had to, I had to.
So just take it. All right, that's variable. Just go
Right. Yeah.
Right. So just say COVID didn't exist. Just say it was regular. They're still behind in terms of the workforce, right? The competitiveness of the workforce. What's up, Mo? I see you. This question is directly related to y'all. Advice, because this is what I'm struggling with. When they graduate high school with an average aptitude of math, science, technology, engineering, and math, right? History, whatever the case may be. English language, whatever. They're entering into a college environment that they're not prepared for. And the reality of it is, am I still here? Did I disconnect? Can you still see me? You lost me.
You good?
No, we can hear you.
Oh, you still okay? I'm still good.
Yeah.
So, okay, all right. So, what advice can you give inner city youth who are coming from an unprepared educational system, able to just barely graduate, going into a college where the competitiveness is this? How do you help them navigate and circumvent a job from a career and something that they love to do that they can capitalize on and build a business? Coming from that background with no point of reference.
Man, that
was a big question, Cal. I got him.
Hey.
Well, and this is the thing, and I don't want to scare people, but like I want to say that when you get into business, people aren't your friend. Like nobody is your friend. Nobody is your friend. Like I can't stress it. Like from your boss to and nobody, the investors in your company who everybody's shaking hands and patting back, nobody is your friend. And so the reason why, like your coworker is not your friend. Like we don't understand this. And what we do is we have this like make-believe thing where we're kind of like, you go to work and we're like, oh man, you have your graduating class and you get there and you're all holding hands. And then what happens when you get into the company, you realize that everybody's like stabbing each other in the back, trying to move up because the company looks like a triangle. And then you're like, he's talking about me at the meeting, and he was saying this at the thing, and they're trying to move up because then they start to realize, and people start going to different companies, and then they stop talking to you and stuff. What we don't realize is that perspective of, like you said, when you start trying to think of something as a career, the mindset is completely different because it's like, what one thing do you want to do for your entire life? And I don't believe that that's a real thing anymore. I don't believe there is such a thing as I don't believe that there's a job, because that's something from 40 years ago. 40 years ago, you went to school for engineering, you got your job, you worked at an engineering company for 40 years, and you retired. Now, I can't think of a single industry where that job has been the same way, and these people worked at that company. You're probably going to work for different companies in that industry, and you probably now statistically are probably going to start switching industries, which means whatever you got to do in is not working in the first place. So just because you graduated in biology, you're probably not going to work for you might end up working for an investment bank writing scientific research, or you might end up working for some other company. Like there's so many different areas. You might end up working, if you get your degree in chemistry, and you might go work for Coca-Cola. It's what happens is we can't even see it. So 90% of that information is useless in the first place. It's good information. 90% is useless. I mean, you can go back. Every adult that I've talked to, and myself, probably you can attest to this. Most of the things that you learned in your high school years, in probably even in college, most of that stuff was worthless. So you pay for your paper. You don't need it. I'm not saying don't go to school. Like if you have a plan, you have a hustle, hey, it can get you a job that can get you security for 3 or 5 years, and you can pay off some student loans, cool. But the way that whole problem came from that question of what do you want to do for the rest of your life? Pick one thing and that's it. And you shouldn't. What I would say is there's about 4 things that you need. I'm guessing maybe you need a house, You need some kind of car, a certain amount of money to sustain yourself. And if you're going to have a family, you're going to need a savings account for that. So you need about these 4 things. For whatever area you live in, you need to put a price on all of those 4 things and anything else that you need. That amount of money that you come up with, add those together, that's all the money that you need to make. So then my question is, how do you make that much money? What do you need to do to make that amount of money? Every day when you wake up, you look at that price. If it's $100,000, I just need to make $100,000. If it's whatever, coming up with an idea, if it's trading, if it's whatever, as long as I make that amount of money, that's it. There is no security. There is no security. There's no, that doesn't exist. Because like you said, once you're working at that company is trying to figure out AI to try to get rid of your job. Or they're trying to figure out how to find investors to sell this company off to the next guy who's going to try to get rid of you. Like, he's actively trying to figure out how to get rid of your position.
Damn. Oh man, that's something that that's a new dynamic in the Black community as far as jobs are concerned, as far as corporations and creating companies. Because one of the main talks, and Kayode and I have talked about this briefly before, but one of the main talks now is, do I create a business to just sell it off, or do I hold on to it to create the legacy to pass it on to my progeny or someone of African-American descent or a person of color? Because again, we know that if the business is doing well, it could be considered, again, correct me if I'm wrong, could be considered an asset for years and years to come. And it could be, and that asset could be passed down to the next generation for them to build off of and to use to continue the business, or maybe they sell the business. But the main issue is people are asking are, should we sell the business to recoup all the money and the time and the skill set that we put into it, to create more wealth,
right,
and then hold on to that? Or should we just take that wealth and just recycle it into another business and create something else that could be eventually sold as well? So that's like one of the main talks that I'm seeing on chats, seeing in forums, etc.
That what's interesting about, and it depends. Of course, it depends on the situation, how much you know. Like you were saying, like we were saying, using that example of the plumber, you get 3 guys together, they build a plumbing company. They hire some junior plumbers to come in and do the work, and then they sell the company off. Like at that point, you should be able to see, okay, maybe we can expand into other cities or whatever, but I'm pretty much trying to get out of this, or this has been too much work, or whatever. You kind of know that area by working in it. Yeah. But so I guess it depends on case by case. But the one thing I will say is, a company always changes, just like the people. And just like when you were 20 years old, the amount of money you needed, to the point when you're 40 years old or 50 years old, your perspective on life and money, companies also change. And so one thing that you notice now is going back to the stock thing, is the companies that America are building now are not sustainable companies. And what I mean by this is, a long time ago, we had an idea that you get GM, you work at GM, you buy GM stock, you pass GM stock down to your kids, and it's legacy GM stock. You get the piece of paper, stock, I own stock.
Right.
That's a generational thing. These companies are built for multi-generational wealth. Well, now, if you notice, these companies are not built that way. When you look at companies like Tesla, even the most successful companies like Tesla, like companies don't generate any profits. They don't generate any earnings, and they don't pass down any dividends. So it doesn't make sense to hold the stock. The reason why, when you look at, and I'll use Tesla as an example. Tesla is not a car company. And when you look at Tesla from a car perspective, it doesn't make sense. And I could look up online as the market value of Tesla. But at one point, I know Tesla's market value was bigger than GM. It was like GM, Ford, and I want to say Toyota combined. Yeah. So one car company that makes like 10,000 cars is bigger than, or maybe it's more than 10,000, but I'm putting that out there. It's a couple of cars, is way larger than the biggest car companies on earth combined. And then people say, well, how are they going to make that many cars for how are they going to make the money back? Like,
Right.
when are the investors going to start getting their cash? And people are like, the investors got their cash because look at the stock price. When the stock, like, that's where the cash is. Elon Musk, all his money, at one point he was the richest person on earth. Like this year or last year, he was the richest person on earth because of how much Tesla stock he owned. But he only owned stock. And how he made his money, he's ended up selling off a little stock, and that's what he used to buy houses and sell. Stock is now a currency. You look at the same thing at Amazon. The price to earnings ratio, the number of year earnings are how much money the company gets every year, right?
Right.
So usually investors will value on things on a price to earnings ratio. So if I invest in your company and the earning ratio is six times earnings, in 6 years, it will take that much earnings to equal out to the cost of the company. Or basically, if I got all of those earnings, I would end up getting my money back in 6 years. That's how that's the old way of looking at that company. Old way.
Yeah.
But now you look at some of these price to earnings ratios, they're in the 100s. You're looking at some of them, I think some of them, they're 200 years. It's going to take 200 years of earnings from this company's earnings to even get your money back. Now I'm talking about these are companies that are some of the biggest companies on earth, like Netflix, like Amazon. These are companies that have no intention of earning money. So why would you want to hold the stock of the company that has no intention of earning money? Our perspective is different. That's why you can't hold on to these companies for the long term. There is not going to be any long term for these companies. Not to say that these companies aren't going to be around in some, I don't know in what form. But if you held on to IBM stock, that company, I remember, like, it used to be $100 and something a share.
Yeah, IBM was a major deal back in the day.
You start looking at some of these companies, GE stock, like these companies aren't around for the long term. Like Chrysler stock, like you can start going down the list. Actually, if you look at the largest companies in 1970, 1980, I'd say 70% of that list probably isn't around anymore. And if it is around, it's definitely losing money. It's a different perspective. This is a different world. So to answer your question, Kyle, we're building companies to sell them off. We're not building companies for the long term because there is no more long term. There's only today.
Yeah. That's a. Ooh, that, I mean. No, sorry. Go ahead.
No, what's crazy about this is, I don't know, I kind of think of myself more as like a financial revolutionary because like it's a lot of different than what other people are going to teach you. They're going to say, hey, invest in the long term, and over the long term, you're going to make your money. And I promise, maybe, but I can't guarantee it. But I promise you.
Right. Kick your teeth.
How do I do it? And they're like, I think just put your money in Coca-Cola. And you're like, what? Wow. Just wait around, and then they don't have any answer for you. And the answer is there is no answer. And so what happens is, though, like talking like when you were mentioning those kids in the hood, and the thing that they have, the one thing that they do have is a realistic view of what the world is like. And what happens is, what's interesting is the only two people that have that perspective is really poor people and really rich people. That's the only two people who have that perspective. The people in the middle don't.
Break that down.
They realize that my company only makes money because I'm running it. If I stop running it, if Elon Musk says, you know what, guys, I've had enough Teslas on its own, then the company, like, the stock price is going to drop that day. When these visionaries or these leading people come out of the companies, or when the main idea is gone, the company is done. Like, we're here for now. That's what we're making money for. We're making money for now. There is no future. We don't know about the future. So that's those people, really rich people, know this, and that's why they're saving. That's why they're starting to diversify their investments into other areas, because they don't know how the U.S. dollar is going to do. That's why they're starting to move their money to other countries, because they don't know how the U.S. government's going to do. Because there is no tomorrow. There's right now. And the same thing is those people in the hood. They know I got to get money to now. I don't know about going to school, long-term investment. Like, hey, I need money. Like, I'm hungry.
Right.
Family needs cash. Like, we got to make it. We need now. Future. I'll worry about tomorrow. But and that those two people have a similar perspective. So what happens is we try to tell people you need to get into the middle class to get into the upper class. And by getting into the middle class, you get rid of all of those things that you had when you were back in the hood. And a lot of those things were useful because those are the things that built everybody that got out of the hood.
And I want to comment on something because it reminds me of I'm paraphrasing a quote by James Baldwin. Said that I'm paraphrasing, family. Basically says like a person cannot be fed on bread alone, but basically a person needs bread in order to survive to get to the next day, basically. So it's like, yeah, bread is not, I need bread now to live, but once you get the bread, I won't be able to sustain that. I know I'm going to need more. You know what I'm saying? Because like, yo, I need that bread. I need to eat. Like I'm malnourished. But then once you get past the malnourishment, it's like, okay, I can't just exist off of just bread. I need more.
Right. But so then what happens is what you said, there's a two-part problem there. The first thing is now I'm hungry and I need bread. The second thing is what am I going to do about the future? Now, when you try to think of those two things together, then you're like, okay, well, I need to start a fishing company to supplement my bread. And now I gotta find employees, but I need a loan, and I'm doing all this because I'm hungry. No, get the bread, eat the bread, and once you're done eating the bread, then you realize, okay, well now how am I going to sustain myself? Worry about that once your stomach is full. Don't worry about that when you're hungry. Get to that point and then worry about the future, because what ends up happening is you'll learn things along the way. And as you learn things along the way, it's going to end up changing your plan anyway. How many times have we written a plan only to go through the first 3 steps of it and then we throw it in the trash? So just build a plan for the first 3 steps, and then you can build a new plan. And as you just keep building plans, it's no different than the person who originally came up with the super plan and did 3 steps and threw it in the garbage and then built a super plan. That's the thing. We're trying to think about too much. We don't, like you said, the career. We don't need a career. Just get a gig, get a job. Actually, just make money. If you just put some money together into something, make a project. You don't even have to make a company. Just make 3 guys getting together to make a project. Our goal is to make 50 grand. We can split 50 grand. We can throw it into the stock market. We can invest in our next idea. We can do whatever with that 50 grand. But our job is just to get to here. Once we get to here, success.
So, Tony, man, you gave me a lot to unpack, brother. Damn, this is some stuff. I have a lot of questions. I'm just going to try and select one. How do you function in a society where, career-wise, where you don't have a baseline on which to build? Like, there's no destination. There's no destination. How do you plan? How do you operate in something like that where there's no destination, right?
Well,
what are you about to say?
No, there's a destination, because that comes from the why. Remember, once you have the why, you know why you're doing it, and you know where you want to go. Which in this case, I know how much money I want to make, and I know what area I want to make it in, because that's what I like to do. I can put those 2 things together. Now you have your end point and you have where you're at, and then you're just meeting in the middle.